You've all heard the idiom, the grass is greener on the other side. Confronting that, sometimes having to make a decision based on that view that things can be easier or can be better over there can be hard. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust your perceptions. Today's guest, Wes, brings us a question about that. He lives in Vermont and he's not sure if that's the place where he can raise a family. He sees some other places and he sees how things might look easier over there, but he's just not quite sure. I think the conversation that he brings us talks to what a lot of us go through. How do we make a decision without really knowing what's on the other side? I'm Mauricio Bruce, and this is The Real Question. Hi, Wes. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm very happy you're here. If you've been listening, you know that I'm going to start this by asking you what you would like to share about yourself. If you could share anything, what would you like our listeners to know about you?
Yeah, I've listened to the show, and so I was perseverating on this yesterday. What I've decided to share is that in the apartment that my fiance and I share, we have a really nice kitchen island. It's not a big apartment, but the kitchen island that we got from IKEA is like the hub. It's where we prep the food. It's where we serve the food. And it is not where I usually eat the food because instead of using one of the two nice stools that's right there, I usually sit on the floor for most of my meals next to the nice kitchen island because of our beautiful little cat Tig and her extreme preference that I sit on the floor with her so she can sit next to me and, do nudges and belly rubs and stuff like that.
I love this image of you sitting on the floor with your meal and the cat. What happens if you don't sit on the floor? What will the cat do?
She'll yell. And if you don't pay attention to that, she'll probably stab you in the butt when you're sitting on the stool.
Oh, she'll start to claw and
She gets what she wants, like most cats that I know.
Does your fiance sit on the floor?
No, not at all. Okay. She has strong boundaries.
Yeah. So you're on the floor with Tig and your fiance is at the island.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Everyone's happy.
So you've come to ask us a question. What's your question?
My question in its barest form is, should we leave Vermont?
Okay, yeah, you need to tell me more. Why are you leaving such a beautiful place?
It is very beautiful. So, context, I guess. Yeah, we've lived here for most of our adult lives. I came up here for college. That's where I met my fiance, and we've been living in Vermont ever since, with one brief foray out of the state at one point in our mid-20s just to prove it to ourselves that we could, and then we came back. But yeah, pretty much it's just been living up here in Vermont. And more and more recently, we had been thinking that maybe it was time to leave, to specifically move closer to the city that she grew up near, where there might be more resources and more of her family is based. And a lot of that is just because it's felt harder and harder to stay in Vermont. We have just always struggled with the cost of rent, the amount of money we make in our jobs, the interface between those two things. It feels really hard to form a stable future here. I think that's where we hit this line. It was like fine when we were in our 20s. We're like, okay, yeah, rent is high, pay is low, we're doing what we can. But then in our later 20s, we had both reached a point where our jobs were pretty stable and we'd worked ourselves up into a certain level in our careers, I guess, where we were like, hey, maybe we should consider getting a house, and just got absolutely crushed in that process. Like you said, Vermont is a very beautiful place. And there's a dynamic here where I think there's a lot of folks who come from other places who are really seeking to build a home in Vermont. It's like a place that people kind of beeline to, I think. And we just found like we didn't stand a chance. It was just all cash offers, no inspection, so we retreated back to our apartment, and then our landlords raised our rent exorbitantly, and managed to land another apartment. And now we're in our early 30s here, and we're just like, oh my gosh, And I don't think this is a like Vermont unique thing, probably at all. I think this is happening in a lot of places to folks in our age group and sort of place in life. So it's sort of that question of just, it feels really hard to put down roots here the way we would like to going forward. We've talked about, wanting to start a family in the next few years, maybe. We're looking to get married next year. And so we're entering that phase where it would be nice to be able to put down more roots and see more of a future where we are. And that's hard to see here, the way things are here currently.
Mm-hmm. Should
we sort of retreat? Maybe isn't quite the right word, but like make a tactical move. But it's fraught and it's sad because we like it here. And
yeah,
we'd had the really firm idea that we were going to move like next year. And lately we decided to table that and stay a little bit longer. But
okay.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to hear all this. This is sort of, it really sucks. And then you gave me something there at the end. You were planning on doing it this year, and then you tabled it for a year. What led you to table it? Why did you decide to not do it this year?
Yeah, so earlier this summer, we got engaged, and
congratulations.
Thank you. It was super fun. And not too long after, we started talking about like, okay, like, what are we going to do for a wedding? One day we were just talking, and she brought up, she was like, well, if we're going to be moving, if we're going to be leaving Vermont, maybe we should like have a wedding here right before we go, like as a last hurrah, invite all our people up to celebrate this place that we have lived our entire relationship and most of our adult lives. And I was like, you know what, that actually sounds really great. So then we started looking into venues, and a lot of the venues were like only available after we were thinking of moving. We were thinking of moving like next summer. But yeah, there was some availability for places that we liked in the fall. And then around the same time, both of our jobs have been picking up again, getting more busy recently. And we were reflecting. So these were like tandem things. Like we were like, okay, a wedding would only really be possible in the fall. And then also our jobs are both going really well right now. So those two things were like, okay, things are going pretty well here. And the apartment that we moved to about a year ago, we finally started to feel like we're more settled in. So we kind of just like looked around and we were like, okay, well, everything's going pretty good right now. And there's still like so many more things we want to do and enjoy. I was thinking, oh gosh, if we're moving next summer, that means I really only have so many more hikes I can do up Mount Mansfield. There's only so many more times I can go to Montreal for a day trip. Dang, there's so many things I love about living up here. And I would be sad to have to leave sooner rather than later,
Okay. So that paints an interesting picture, because you're living in a place where you have a job that you like and that you feel stable in. You've settled into the apartment, and this is an apartment that you like and that you enjoy living in. The city, the hikes, the day drives, like everything about the place you're living seems to be something that you like.
Yeah. It's a good quality of life. We do not save any money. We just completely break even living it, but it's a good life to live.
And you have a community.
Yeah. And we have friends up here, and there's a lot going on up here. And in some ways, that's something I've been thinking about too. For a lot of the last year, I've been thinking in the back of my head all the time, like, oh yeah, well, we're moving kind of soon. So not necessarily digging in as much to different things in the community. Like I go to a book group at my local library, but like there's other things going on, in town and around that I would probably be more committed to if I felt like I had more of a stake in the place. But that's also the double-edged sword there, is that for the longest time, it's felt like we aren't really full citizens of this place, I guess. It feels like if you're not a homeowner up here, as a renter, you never know if you're even going to be able to stay in the same community, right? Like we
Right.
were rooted in the town that we were in here for most of a decade. And then within a couple months had to leave it because our rent went up exorbitantly. And there's no law in Vermont, at least where we are, that prevents that. So then we found ourselves in a new town. And so yeah, that's been about a year, and it's not that far away from where we were, but it is very different. And we've gotten our feet under us a bit. But there's always that feeling that like you could have the rug pulled out from under you because
Right.
the housing crisis is so intense that people are just happy to have a roof over their heads, and landlords know that. And you just kind of feel lucky that you have an apartment at all and that it hasn't been turned into an Airbnb. And so it feels hard to like dig into going to like town events, and because you're like, well, am I even going to be here? Maybe.
But that's an important part of what you're sharing. It's almost like I enjoy living here. I have a community. I have a job that I like. I like my apartment, but I don't really have roots here. I don't feel like I'm a part of this world.
Yeah. That's always been something that's really important to me, is to feel like I'm rooted in my place. The town that I grew up in, I had a really, really strong connection with. And it's actually that's the place we tried to move for 1 year. It was the one place we've lived outside of Vermont. And it was really, really hard to live there. We found that the cost of living was way too high and we couldn't find any apartments that we could afford. And so, yeah, a lot of my adult life, I guess, has felt like wanting to find that sense of home and rootedness. Yeah, I think that's what this move to my fiance's hometown has sort of represented, is like, oh, this would be really a chance to actually get rooted and actually have a future in a place.
So those are important words, rooted and future. And I'm curious, when you think of that place, you went for a year to try out your hometown. I assume you guys have gone to this other place and sort of looked at homes and thought about affordability and all this stuff.
Yeah, and it feels like there's just a lot more going on. It's a bigger city, and there would be more options, more availability. That's the hope anyway. We don't really know for sure.
Okay, but that also seems like an important thing to start just sort of looking at before you retreat.
Yeah, and I think that was part of our pause too, is we're like, okay, things are going really well here, so we should probably stay at least another year and just keep enjoying our lives here. And also, how much greener is the grass there, really? Again, like I said, I don't think these issues of precarity and scarcity are unique to Vermont necessarily. It seems like there would be more options, though. So that's why it still feels like it's on the table.
You've just used the phrase, how much greener is the grass over there? And I'm curious, when you think of your life over there, what do you imagine? What's the fantasy, or what's the goal? What do you see there that you're thinking, yep, this is why that feels right? Is it just owning a home, or is there something else that you're thinking?
Yeah, like I was saying earlier about, you pointed out the keywords rootedness and future. That's kind of what I've been feeling with moving to this other place. A lot of that, I think, is the possibility of being able to buy a home. I don't even necessarily care that much about home ownership for its own sake. That just feels like the way to get a stable place to live in this country. Like, I've read about other places where, like in Austria, like most people rent and it's great. And I'm like, great, that sounds cool. If it was stable, But here, I guess, like, that means you have to own a home and get a mortgage. So yeah, it would be nice to be able to do that if that's what we got to do to have a stable place to be. And I like the idea of being in a bigger city, being in a place that has a lot more going on. When I think particularly about the idea of raising a kid, really wouldn't want to do it here. I used to be a teacher here, and I just saw like the effect of what the demographics are here being really challenging for kids.
Okay.
It's a really white state. And I don't think that's where I want to be for my future. Never mind also how I want to raise a kid.
Yeah.
And so when I think of like where I want to be in the future, I want more than just like nice hiking trails. I want to be in a community that feels diverse and vibrant. And of course, there's many other ways, but racially and socioeconomically, Vermont feels tough that way.
Yeah. Okay. I think that sets a really clear picture of how the grass is greener on the other side, which is I could own a home and it would be more diverse.
Yeah, I guess it's just that feeling that there would be more possibilities too. It feels like if we wanted to have a kid in the next few years, or just to have a kid here, that would be really, really tough financially and like for finding childcare. And it feels like that would be potentially easier if we moved to this city where some of my fiance's family is and could be around to be a support. And then
right.
Theoretically also just maybe there's more childcare options in a bigger city, in a bigger place.
And now that you said that, if you could afford a house in Vermont, would you want it? Having said all the other things that you told me.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I just watched a coworker of mine who is a friend, and recently she and her husband really lucked out. And this was how they talked about it too. Like, this is such a lucky break, like word of mouth kind of thing. They got a house. They did it. And I was really excited for them. And it made me think about that exactly. I was like, what if we had a similar lucky break? What if some absolute like word of mouth, just an older couple said, okay, we're moving here, you can have it, which is the only possible way I think you get a house right now in Vermont. That's where I come back to feeling like I don't know if this is where I want to make my future.
That's right. That feeling, when you said that, I don't know if I want to raise a child here. That's really clear.
Yeah, I think that's the framework through which we were mainly thinking about it, in terms of being like, oh, we should probably move. Because for ourselves, for right now, it's fine. It's good. There's lots of things to enjoy. But when I think about what I really want in terms of wanting to have a kid, and that brings up so many other hopes and dreams and desires, like what kind of life you'd want to give them. And that's where I always think too, like, and I know this really viscerally from some friends of mine, like, you might try to have a kid and not be able to. So
sure.
That frame of mind of like, oh, I would love to give my kid this, I would love to give my kid that. Like, well, you could also reframe that and say that those are things I would like to have for my future. Like, I would, I'm a really big bike commuter, and I love to follow stuff around that. And I've heard this whole talking point where people say, I really got into advocating for safer bike lanes once I had kids. And I realized how much I wanted to live in a community that was walkable and bikeable. And I'm like, don't you just kind of want that anyway? I feel like a lot of the things that I can think of that I would like hope and dream for my future child, or think it's the world that I would want to live in. Like, why don't I just try to make steps for that regardless? Because,
well, I think that's a beautiful point. And we could talk a lot about that, about how kids give us permission to fight for and create those things that we really want for ourselves.
Yeah. So I guess that's how I'm thinking of it anyway, too. I'm like, these are just kind of, when I think of my future, what kind of things do I want for myself too? Like, what kind of life do I want to be living? Yeah.
Okay. And so the thing holding you back right now, the reason you haven't packed up your stuff and gone, is because the wedding is going to be there next fall.
And because we both really like our jobs here right now. And that's the other, I think, anxieties. Like, would we even be able to get as like, it would be tough to start from the ground floor in that respect.
Right.
Like, both of us have worked so hard to get to where we are now. And so that's a bit daunting too, is to think, okay, so we would move, start trying to have a kid pretty soon and be doing new jobs. Oof. Like, I know that's a thing. Everyone makes things happen, figures things out, but that does feel a bit daunting when we're pretty comfortable right now in most respects, like with where we're at. So it's that feeling of having to start over, I think, that also feels tough.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought it up, because yes, moving is not just, hey, I'm going to go get a house and I'm going to be really happy and it's going to be the best community and there'll be parks and I'll go to museums and I'm going to see a lot of live music and my neighbors will be friendly, right? Like it's like I got to go find a house. I got to go find a job. I need to sort of start to create a new life, which I don't think is impossible or hard. I think it's very doable, and it often comes and is filled with lots of opportunities and with wonder and with the magic of being in a new place. And so leaving Vermont is the end of an era in Wes's life, the end of a chapter, and it's the beginning of a new chapter in this other place.
Yeah, and that's a funny metaphor to think of right now for that too, because when I'm nearing the end of a book that I really like, I tend to read it really, really slowly at the end. Like I read like 2-3 pages at a time before bed and put it back down. And my fiance devours books. It mercilessly has no qualms about loving a book over the course of an entire day and, or a weekend. And yeah, I'm just thinking of it in that sense because I feel like the way we're treating this move or stay decision right now is a bit more in my book reading camp. Or like, oh, it's really nice. Let's savor this last few chapters or few pages.
Beautiful. Let me ask you this. The question is, should I leave Vermont? Is the question, when should I leave Vermont? Because I know we're leaving? Or is it still in, maybe we'll stay? If the right house shows up, we'll stay.
I think it's more of a when, because yeah, we've both talked about wanting to try to start a family. And that's really the lens through which we're like, yeah, and don't really want to do that here.
So Wes, you're leaving Vermont.
In one of the recent episodes, I think you said something along the lines, you have a friend who gives you feedback on episodes sometimes and said that all of your episodes are about grief. And that really stuck out to me. And I was like, oh,
welcome.
Shoot, I know that's what we're doing here too. Yeah.
That's right. What do you feel when I say, hey, listen, you're leaving Vermont. This is where everything seems to be flowing toward. What happens?
Yeah, I feel sad because maybe it's partly because I've been thinking about leaving for so much of the last year. I have been really appreciating things more. Like I've been less in a posture of like, oh, this is annoying, or let me complain about that. I'm more just like, wow, isn't it so cool just to even be able to get to do this, like, yeah. So I feel sad. I feel a little scared because, yeah, like we were talking about the idea of starting new in a new place. I think especially with the idea of the job thing, I feel really lucky to have gotten to where I currently am. And like, could I recreate this down there? Could I get a job like this down there? I hope so. I have changed jobs so many times here and figured things out. And I do think I have the tools to do that down there.
And Wes, even though it feels like you are leaving and like that decision is imminent, you're not leaving yet. And I don't want you to start sort of mourning and start missing it while you're still there.
Yeah, no, yeah, because that's been my fear too, is like, I don't want to just be constantly wistful. And I think that's my other fear with this too, is I've spent so much time, so much of this is about living in the future and thinking about the future, a very unknown future with lots of possibilities and hopes and dreams, but also unknowns.
That's right.
And I definitely want to be more present. That's definitely a goal. And I don't like feeling that one way or another, I'm always kind of thinking about the future or really giving a lot of my headspace and energy to that.
Yeah, but I think that place where you've just landed is really important because our whole conversation has been about what are you going to create in this other city and what's possible and what are you seeking and what are you wanting. And I think we've established what you're looking for and what you want to create. And now you're telling me, I don't want to just be living in the future. I want to be able to be present and I want to be able to enjoy life as it unfolds. Right? You're going to make a decision with your fiance and say, okay, in winter 2026, we are probably moving. Right after the wedding in the fall. I'm just saying it could not.
Sure.
It might be. Yeah. You'll set some potential date because it also sounds like you and your fiance are both in agreement that this is the place where you guys want to try building what you're looking to build. And so you'll set a decision, but you'll also remain present enough that if other doors open or other possibilities come up, you'll be able to discuss and assess. This is not a retreat. It is a path forward.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's beautiful. Yeah. It's a yes and.
But before I bring you back to your original question, I'm going to come back to my question. If a house shows up and you go, hey, this is a house you can afford, Wes. Here's the opportunity to live here and to be a part of this community. So if a house shows up in Vermont, Wes, and you say, this is a house that we can afford, this is an opportunity to live here. Having spoken about what we've spoken, having gone where we've gone, would you consider it?
I think it would feel hard. I think I would feel bad because there's such like we would move into that house and you'd be looking over your shoulder and being like, but do I deserve this? Like there's so many other people I know who really need and want this and like are working their butts off for less. Like this friend who just got the house had a lovely housewarming party, invited everyone from all their different circles. And so like all these different people were meeting from different walks of her life. And she made this comment that stuck out to me, or she was like, I am feeling some anxiousness around the fact that like we have this nice, pretty spacious house and my friends with, 2 young kids are living in like a shoebox and they're coming over to visit and being like, oh, wow, look at this. Look at all this space the two of you have, like.
Wait, I'm going to pause you. You're taking me down this little story road, which is fine. I'm just going to ask you the question again. Would you buy the house? If it came to you and it said, hey, Wes, here's a house. It's in a neighborhood you like. It's in a state you like. It's near the cheddar factory.
I really don't know that I would. Yeah, no, I appreciate you holding me to it. Yeah, I love this place and I love it right now. And I don't feel like I would want to be here forever or for the rest, for the future.
Beautiful. So I love Vermont. I really love my life here. And me and my fiance are going to set our next destination so that we can continue down our path. And we're going to leave Vermont.
That's hard. I think it's just any disturbance to the status quo feels hard. But, and I think I said that in my voicemail a little bit too, is I worry that if we just stay with what's comfortable now, because it's good now, we could miss out on future opportunities or reaching those goals. Like if we'd been able to get a house back in 2021, I think we probably would be living a different life. Like we would have moved forward on some of those other goals.
Sure. But this is not about what you didn't do back then or what could be. It's about this that you just sat with and decided, no, I would not want to live here. I would not want to have a house here. And therefore, it's about also saying, okay, I'm ready to end this chapter and move on. But I'm going to bring you back to our original question, which is, should I leave Vermont? And I want to know what you're feeling or thinking about that right now.
Oh, what a tough question. Who would ask that? Um, yeah, we should. Yeah, we should.
Take a deep breath.
It's hard to say. It's hard to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it just makes me feel really sad.
Yeah.
Not just. It's just like the sense of. It's a feeling of like loss, I guess. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know that's a good feeling to feel. Yeah, I didn't expect to feel this sad when you made me say it.
I didn't make you say it.
Yes, you did.
Okay, Wes, I'm going to call you back in 3 months, and I'm just going to check in how you're sitting with this, how you're feeling, and what you have done to sort of sit with this feeling.
That sounds good. Yeah.
John Kabat-Zinn said, wherever you go, there you are. I'm going to say, wherever you go, you can sit on the floor with your cat.
Beautiful. Thank you.
This has been The Real Question. Our show is funded through our Patreon at patreon.com/realquestionpod. Another way you can support this show is by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Real Question Pod. Hey, we are always looking for more guests. We are starting the last trimester of the year, and I just want the best guests for the show. So go to our website, realquestionpod.com, and submit your question, and we can have October, November, and December full of amazing guests. We love to shout out our BFF tier patrons, Renee Underhill, Christina Eagle Brandon, and Jackson Paul Keeley. Thank you so much. We're in a Not Sorry production. Our co-executive producers are Vanessa Zoltan and Ariana Nettleman. We are edited and produced by Ariana Nettleman. Music is by Nick Bowl, and we are distributed by Acast. Support for this show comes from the Fetzer Institute. Thank you, Wes, for joining us today. Thank you for sitting on the floor with us and really talking us through what you're going through. It's not easy. And I really look forward to hearing from you in a couple of months and see what decision you've made. In the meantime, you've shown us all how to look out there into the unknown and try to think about ourselves. What do we need? What do we want? And how do we take that step? And thanks as always to our wonderful team, Julia Argy, Nikki Zoltan, AJ Yaramas, Anissa Ahmed, Denny Langley, Courtney Brown, Casper Trikyle, and Stephanie Paulsell.